Ah, Dartmoor, a land of mist, mystery and moody architectural masonry. The sort of place where one might reasonably expect to find a ghost in the scullery or a family curse scribbled behind the wainscoting. But no, dear viewers, the menace we encountered was far more modern and far more menacing. It was radon. Yes, radon. A noble-sounding gas with ignoble intentions, invisible, odourless, and quite possibly lounging beneath your drawing room as we speak. A natural byproduct of the very earth itself, and unfortunately not exclusive to Dartmoor. In fact, elevated levels of radon have been detected across vast swathes of the United Kingdom, from the granite reaches of Cornwall to the ancient soils of Scotland, through Wales, Ireland, and across the western spine of England. It is, in short, a nationwide gatecrasher, and one surprisingly few people know about. Now, when one purchases a country estate built in 1894, a house with more drafts than the House of Lords, one does not expect to find a radioactive villain rising up from the cellar. But find it we did. And so began the case of the unseen intruder. With all the seriousness of a Victorian melodrama, minus the fainting, we consulted the experts, radon specialists armed not with pipes and magnifying glasses, but digital meters, airflow charts, and slightly haunted expressions. Without further ado, we procured several marvellous little contraptions known as Airthings Wave Plus devices, clever monitors, which we stationed in 4 key rooms of the house. These curious sentinels began to measure radon, CO2, VOCs, humidity, temperature and pressure, glowing red, amber or green like gaslit guardians of the realm, morning, noon and night. After 30 days of diligent monitoring and frequent glances at their ever-changing hues, we were presented with a clear picture of our average radon readings in each room. At last, clarity. This trove of information was dutifully relayed back to the specialists. Once suitably briefed, we did what any determined renovator would do. We set to work ourselves, installing a radon mitigation system. Armed with jackhammers, drills, ducting and a healthy dose of suspicion, we commenced the necessary demolition of the existing basement slab, a wafer-thin, somewhat crumbling affair that appeared to have been poured in a state of mild indifference sometime last century. Down we went, digging to the required depth, uncovering the ancient underbelly of our house. But wait. Let's take a brief deviation. During our concrete slab removal, despite the utmost care taken, Watson did unfortunately break through a terracotta drainage pipe that had been buried under the cellar floor. This, however, turned out to be rather fortuitous. We were then able to trace the pipe from start to finish and ensure it was functioning properly. Due to the damage, we removed the crack sections and went about inspecting the pipe's condition. What we found was enlightening. The pipe was thoroughly blocked with years of sludge, leaves, soil and assorted detritus from gutters and runoff. So the breakage, it turns out, was a blessing. We fully cleaned the remaining pipework so water could flow freely once again. In one particularly curious section, we discovered the laziest of past repairs. Some bygone tradesman had stuffed a plastic bread wrapper into a crack, then attempted to cement it in place, quite possibly thinking it would hold. Reader, it did not. That dubious handiwork was immediately removed and new pipework installed with care. Today, rainwater runs smoothly, and our faith in drainage partially restored. Let's continue where we left off. There, in the bowels of the basement, we began installing our mechanical butler, the core of our mitigation system. After a while, all of our trenches were dug resembling a perfect archaeological dig. Sadly, no precious minerals were found along the way. We first carved out a cavity of approximately 600 millimeters, into which we placed a curious contraption resembling an oversized cheese box, a white plastic chamber, riddled with holes of various sizes designed to collect radon gas and channel it away with quiet efficiency. Think of it, if you will, as a Victorian hatbox crossbred with a block of Emmental. 2 additional side chambers, shaped like antique flutes with perforated piping, were connected, forming the supporting cast of this subterranean performance. Every joint was cleaned with due ceremony using pipe cleaner, then sealed with industrial glue to ensure an airtight bond. No villainous radon would escape our pipework. Once assembled, the chamber and pipes were gently packed with rubble. Reclaimed stone, vintage cement, and other charming artefacts from the demolished slab, allowing airflow to meander freely, but no gas to linger. We then cut neat strips of the radon sheet, allowing us to wrap the ends of the pipes snugly, both to keep debris from tumbling into the cheese cones and to help create the vacuum seal required once everything was buried beneath the earth. Watson and I mostly supervised, then buried the entire affair with the same sand excavated from the original floor, tamping it down with the pride of a detective duo laying the foundation for a championship croquet lawn, or perhaps the finest indoor sand court this side of the Tamar. Next came the elevation. We carefully marked the cellar walls to determine the level for our new concrete slab. Not too high, not too low, but just right, like a porridge Goldilocks would have approved of. The walls were then painted with a rich coat of black bitumen, not as a damp-proof course, but rather as a formidable adhesive foundation. It provided the perfect contact surface for the next step in our cunning plan, the application of double-sided bitumen sponge tape, a modern marvel that no drawing room should be without, which clung to the bitumen with all the enthusiasm of a dachshund to a velvet chaise. This prepared the way for the pièce de résistance, a gloriously red radon gas membrane, rolled out like a royal carpet. This striking sheet, glossy, bold, and entirely unbothered by subterranean gases, would become an essential player in our cunning plan, to create a vacuum beneath the slab, capturing any rising radon and sending it briskly on its way. Once satisfied that our gloriously red radon gas membrane was securely affixed to the cellar walls, like a well-behaved tablecloth at a particularly strict garden party, we couldn't resist adding a touch of personal flair. For posterity, and entirely our own amusement, I scrawled a short message upon the membrane, noting the year of installation. Alongside this, I included a completely irrelevant yet deeply satisfying illustration. A dragon, mid-roar, belching fire across the underworld of our home. Why? One cannot say. But if a future archaeologist finds it, may they smile and wonder what strange rituals once occurred in the basements of Dartmoor. With the red carpet laid and the dragon duly installed, we began the next stage, pouring the new concrete slab. Before any pouring could commence, Watson constructed an impressively creative wooden chute, a DIY concrete slide of sorts, designed to funnel the mix neatly from the upper garden path into the subterranean depths below. The contraption resembled something between a coal chute and a Victorian postal system, and I dare say he was rather proud of it. Our faithful concrete truck, with no small amount of dramatic wheel turning and hedge kissing, managed to reverse down our winding drive and position itself perfectly. The truck's delivery chute aligned splendidly with Watson's homemade slide, a moment of mechanical matrimony, if ever I saw one. With a hearty dose of strengthening fibres added to the blend because no one wants a flimsy floor, our stalwart concrete man, John, began the pour. The first mix was served somewhat dry, ideal for crafting the interior step Watson had designed into the space. This mix, stubborn and heavy, required a fair bit of persuasion to settle into its new life. Watson manhandled it into place with the determination of a Victorian strongman rearranging marble statues. Once the step had been wrestled into position, the main event began. A smoother, more fluid mix, gliding down the chute and into the cellar with alarming enthusiasm. Watson, now alone below, found himself in a race against time, spreading, smoothing and tamping the fresh concrete with such speed and vigour that one feared he might begin steaming at the ears. With concrete arriving in relentless waves, he tamped and levelled, vanishing air pockets and rebellious bubbles with every pass. Several breathless hours later, the pour was complete, but Watson was not yet done. No, dear viewers, for the final flourish, He launched himself onto the scene like a gliding sea otter, lying flat across large scaffolding boards, carefully placed above the slab before pouring began. Using a trowel with the grace of a fencing master, he skimmed and smoothed the surface to a polished finish. At one point he even mimicked a swimming stroke, breaststroke I believe, gliding across the boards atop our gleaming new floor like a man possessed by both madness and pride. We were finally done for the day, and what a day it was. Watson and I emerged from the cellar like two weary archaeologists returning from an ancient dig, spattered in cement dust, muscles trembling, but triumphant. We left the slab to cure for several days, resisting the urge to tiptoe across it like excited children in a forbidden parlour. When we finally did step upon our new floor, smooth, level and gloriously solid, it was with no small amount of reverence. By that point our Airthings devices were already whispering promising news. Radon levels, once cheeky and unpredictable, were now stabilising, the little monitors glowing a friendlier hue, offering hope and quiet encouragement. And yet, the task was not complete. For there remained one final piece of the puzzle, connecting the buried pipework to the hero of our entire system, the Radon fan supplied by the marvellous and ever-helpful team at Glencoe Radvac. This was the moment we had waited for. This fan, though small and unassuming, was destined to be the gallant champion of the operation, drawing the Radon gas from the depths of the earth through our carefully laid piping and expelling it heroically up and away above the eaves of the house, where it would meet the fresh Dartmoor air and vanish, banished into the breeze. But first, installation. Watson Jr. and Watson Sr., a fine family tradition of enthusiastic drilling, set to work with great purpose, boring a channel from the interior cellar wall through to the exterior stairwell. At first, they encountered solid granite, part of the original 1894 foundation wall, which resisted their efforts with the grim stoicism of Dartmoor itself. But soon enough they reached the upper layer of brickwork, which to everyone's relief yielded swiftly. With a little gentle persuasion, and only minor muttering, the hole was formed. The pipes were once again scrubbed and glued with care, joined together to form a watertight path, angled precisely to avoid the possibility of moisture trickling back toward the fan. With the pipework secured to the exterior wall and a stately cowl added to the top like a gentleman's hat, all was in place. The fan was wired to the mains, switched on, and following Radvac's sage advice immediately set to power level 4, the highest setting. A bold move, but we had a house to protect and a dragon to honour, and now we wait. With great anticipation and frequent checking of the app, we monitor the levels daily, watching those numbers like nervous stockbrokers in waistcoats, hoping for a steady downward trend. There's something oddly thrilling, and admittedly a bit obsessive, about checking one's radon readings each day over breakfast. But patience, as I say to Watson, is the most underrated of virtues. We must wait the full 30-day cycle before declaring absolute victory, for only then will we have a true average reading. And yet, the early signs are splendid. The work undertaken with the generous advice of Glencoe Radvac may well be the solution of all solutions. Hope rises, and perhaps, if all goes to plan, we shall dance in the drawing room after all. And so, dear viewers, as our Airthings devices continue their silent vigil and Watson restrains himself from checking the readings every 12 minutes, we bring this chapter to a gentle close, but not without a final word. Sherlock, that would be me, and Watson, ever valiant, ever dusty, will soon be compiling a step-by-step guide to be released right here on the YouTube, the modern-day equivalent of publishing in the Strand magazine, only with more buttons. This guide will walk through exactly how we went about creating our radon mitigation system, tailored specifically to the needs and quirks of our dear old Dartmoor house. Now let it be said, and let it be understood, that we do not consider ourselves experts. What we have employed is not so much professional doctrine as the subtle art of deduction, a blend of observation, logic, and a touch of educated guesswork, born from countless hours of research and, yes, a healthy fear of radioactive basements. We do not presume to suggest that our method is universal, nor that it should be adopted without care. Ours is merely a personal account shared in the spirit of open knowledge and community, and done so under the guidance of professionals. We strongly advise anyone dealing with radon to consult experienced specialists, such as the team at Glencoe Radvac, who possess a wealth of knowledge and a rather marvellous understanding of what works, and more importantly what doesn't. To the entire team at Glencoe Radvac, thank you. Your advice and support have been invaluable, and your kit of parts, particularly the splendid Radon fan and cheese box, has allowed enthusiastic renovators like ourselves to build a safer home, one brick, pipe and dragon doodle at a time. Here's to creating a house that breathes freely once again. Subscribe below to follow and support us on our journey. This is the Dartmoor Diaries, a most curious case of domestic ambition.